This video is sponsored by Tokyo Treat. There's a lot of characters throughout the duration of Naruto's history who are insanely powerful. Fortunately for a lot of these characters, we have a really good image of how powerful they are because we have feats and data books and a lot of other entries. But honestly, sometimes it feels like we have as many characters whose power we know as characters whose power we don't. The first two generation of Kage, Sakamo Hatake, a lot of others. But there really is one character who rises above the rest in terms of intrigue and lack of data. And you could say,
well, Nick, that's because the character we're talking about today is a side character's side character.
But when you paint the picture of an incredibly powerful person and then don't tell us why or show us how they are so powerful, well, people are gonna try and fill in the blanks. And filling in blanks is kind of my job. So without further ado, let's get into You Know Nothing about Ashina Uzumaki. Before we get to knowing quite literally anything about this character, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell. And if you're feeling very generous to the fact that Nick has to flex some of his interpretive and creative skills in this video, guys, please follow my other two YouTube pages, NC Gamer 23, where instead of talking anime, I play video games, and Hammer's Collection, where instead of talking anime, I open and unbox anime statues. Fun fact, the first 1,000 people to follow Hammer's Collections will be entered into a giveaway to receive Naruto collectibles. But before we get into all that, guys, we gotta talk about our favorite returning sponsor, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. Let's start where we usually start and talk about Tokyo Treat. Tokyo Treat is a monthly Japanese snack box that gives you access to Japanese exclusive snacks. With this box, you can take a look into modern Japanese snacking. And each month, the box comes with a theme. This month's theme is Summer Matsuri. And this 24-page pamphlet is actually very important because not only is it going to tell you what Summer Matsuri is about, it also tells you the contents, allergens, and flavor profiles of every single snack in this box. So let's say you pick this up and you don't know what it is. You don't read Japanese. All you have to do is refer to your pamphlet. And from the pamphlet, we figure out that these are Full Moon Pond salted crackers. So let's give them a try. An incredible crunch, salt, and butter profile. But let's say you're looking for something a bit more traditional. Sakura Co is a monthly subscription snack box just like Tokyo Treat, but it's filled with artisanal and traditional Japanese snacks, the majority of which are handmade by local artisans. And just like with Tokyo Treat, each month has a theme, and this month's theme is tea time in Yokohama. And just like with Tokyo Treat, we run into the same problem where I don't know what this is, but the pamphlet tells us this is a Yokohama chocolate crunchy. Let's give it a go. The sweetness of the chocolate is perfectly paired with the light crunch. But the Sakura Co box actually comes with more than just snacks. Every single month they send you a new piece of tableware. This month they sent this adorable sauce plate. So what are you guys waiting for? Use code NCHammer at checkout for $5 off your first order at either Sakura Co or Tokyo Treat. But don't just go type in Sakura Co or Tokyo Treat, guys. Use the links in my pinned comment in my description below. Let's get to snacking. The Uzumakis, the truest enigmatic question mark in the entirety of Naruto's history. A clan with tight ties to the Senju who existed during the Warring States period and even had their own village. A clan with Fuin Jutsu, aka Sealing Jutsu, so powerful that they were feared by all of the ninja villages combined. So feared that in fact that 4 of the 5 major ninja villages teamed up together to kill them. But if they were that powerful, maybe as powerful or even more powerful than the Senju, who was the kind of person who led them? You see, because we know that the leader of a clan is going to be the most powerful person. It was Madara, it was Hashirama, especially in this era where war was basically all the clans did. See, while you could argue that nowadays, while Kakashi or Tsunade was Hokage, they were not the strongest person in the village, and you'd probably be right, that's because the times have changed. Kakashi and Tsunade were more needed for their minds, or their diplomatic abilities, or their healing ability in Tsunade. But in the Warring States period and the early days of the ninja villages, the clan leader or the village leader had to be the most powerful person out there. In a warring society, the only currency that matters is your ability to draw the blood of your opponents. Was Ashina Uzumaki the strongest Uzumaki in the Uzumaki clan? Probably, which means a lot. See, you can scale the Uzumaki and the Senju somewhat similarly based on what we've heard. We know for a fact that the Uzumaki and the Senju are closely related, and therefore both the Uzumaki and the Senju share a couple of characteristics, like incredible life force and extended life range. By life range, I mean like life expectancy. Because your average full-blooded Uzumaki would live almost double that of a standard person. We know this because Mito Uzumaki didn't die until Hiruzen was deep into his Hokage run. And technically, Mito died young for an Uzumaki because she had to have Kurama pulled out of her to be put Kushina. A life expectancy of 150-ish years is not insane for an Uzumaki. On top of that, their life force itself was so overflowing and their chakra reserves were so enormous that simply sharing their chakra with a human being would heal them and refill all of that person's chakra. You know Karin's ability? You know the one that Sasuke spams every time he gets in trouble? Essentially, by biting into Karin's skin, he's accessing her chakra. And chakra very easily can be driven to increase the mitotic regeneration of your cells, assuming you have enough of it. You see, because this is what Tsunade does with her strength of 100 seal. Tsunade is constantly diverting chakra away from her strength of 100 seal to increase the mitotic regeneration in her cells and therefore keep herself young. Well, it's that in a mixture of transformation jutsu. Regardless, it's not crazy to assume that there's no way that Karin was the only person with this ability. Because after all, Karin is just sharing what Uzumaki life force feels like to other regular people. Because the Uzumakis, just like the Senju, had an inherent healing factor. I mean, to put Uzumaki chakra levels into perspective, after Tsunade had depleted all of the chakra in her strength of 100 seal during the war arc, she bit Karin. By biting Karin, she was able to refill in entirety her strength of 100 seal. Obviously, this made Karin pass out, but the fact that it didn't kill Karin immediately is insane, and I'll tell you why. The strength of 100 seal took Sakura 3 years to fill. Every day, Sakura had to divert whatever chakra she had left at the end of the day into a pool of chakra. This pool of chakra is kept in the skull. And this pool of chakra is so immense that it A, not only increases your speed and strength a ridiculous amount, but B, also allows you to heal yourself from death 100 times. Sakura in her light novel, Sakura Hiden, actually has her arm blown off by a tailed beast bomb and just shoots out a new one like perfect cell. And she could do that or feats larger than that 100 times. Karin was able to fill that entire bank in Tsunade, who was more practiced in strength of 100 seal than Sakura at the moment, in one go. Not to mention that Karin also had an ability called Mind's Eye of the Kagura. You see, Mind's Eye of the Kagura allows somebody essentially, when they're closing their eyes, to open their third eye in their brain. Not like Kaguya or Momoshiki's third eye, like a more spiritual third eye. But this third eye acts like a Byakugan. Actually, it is a Byakugan, but better. Because Karin is able to hone in on a chakra signature, a specific chakra signature, from 25 kilometers away. In fact, she can see if that chakra signature is lying, is molding ninjutsu, is sitting, standing, walking, running, all of it from 24 kilometers away. But unlike the Byakugan, the Mind's Eye of the Kagura can actually look upon its user. If you close your eyes and open your third eye, you can see your own chakra signature and you can see if it's been disrupted, thus telling you if you've been put under genjutsu. And then you can just break yourself out of genjutsu. And what's wild is I haven't even got to their Fuin jutsu. But let's quickly recap what we covered thus far. The Uzumakis have an amount of chakra on them at any given point that is comparable to the amount of chakra kept in a strength of 100 seal. They're able to see through walls up to 25 kilometers away, and that's just how far away Karin's target was. We don't know if it goes beyond that, and they are technically immune to genjutsu. Now we get to talk about their Fuin jutsu. Obviously, the one that everybody talks about is adamantite chains, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there is a theory amongst Naruto nerds like myself about the Uzumakis in the Reaper Death Seal. Death Reaper Seal. I have a tattoo of it and I still don't remember the order of the words. You see, the Death Reaper Seal was created by the Uzumakis. Believe it or not, Kushina was more likely than not the person who taught Minato how to use it. But the question always comes up, how do you figure out the Death Reaper Seal? The second you weave the signs, you're dead. How do you teach that to anybody else? And it's a good question. It's the same thing with the 8th gate. How did we figure out the 8th gate if you die when you use it? And also, why did Might Guy have moves named in the 8th gate? Like, he had used it before? But we have to remember who created the Death Reaper Seal. It was the Uzumakis, who have an abnormally, and I mean significantly abnormally high life force and regenerative ability. So this theory states that maybe the Uzumakis, with their abnormally high life force and regenerative ability, could use the Death Reaper Seal without dying. Not a bunch of times, maybe once or twice, and therefore they were able to pass it along throughout the generations. But if you use the Death Reaper Seal, it significantly shortens your life expectancy to that maybe of a normal human. And there's a couple of points to corroborate this point. One, there's the Uzumaki temple that was built in Konoha. You know, the place that Orochimaru took Sasuke and all of them so he could throw on a mask that brought the Shinigami? This was a temple created by the Uzumakis in Konoha, and it was filled with Shinigami masks. Now, these Shinigami masks, once donned, basically possess you with a Shinigami, meaning that while you're wearing this mask, any movement that you do, the Shinigami will also do. And because of this, Orochimaru was able to cut his stomach open, making the Shinigami cut his stomach open. And everybody that was already in the Shinigami stomach poured out. Now, it's stated that Orochimaru should have died here, but not because he invoked the Shinigami, no, because he cut his stomach open. So donning the Shinigami mask and invoking the Shinigami won't kill you. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means that the Uzumakis were able to make a one-way contract with the god of death that doesn't kill them. It also points towards them being able to use the Death Reaper seal and not die. You see, why make the Shinigami mask? So you can use Death Reaper seal release and cut open the Shinigami stomach? Yeah, but cutting open your own stomach is still gonna kill you. At least it would to the average person. Now, if you have an insane healing factor and an insane amount of chakra, then you actually might survive it. But why would the Uzumaki need to release souls from the Shinigami's stomach? And why would they need 22 masks to achieve this goal? What if they made these masks, and a lot of them, so after they use the Death Reaper seal, they can get back the part of their soul that they lost sealing the other person? Because for those of you who haven't seen my Death Reaper explained video, it's right here, it works pretty funnily. The jutsu, that is. Essentially, let's say that my chakra points, my max chakra is 50. Your max chakra is 70, but I use Reaper Death Seal on you. I will only be able to pull out as much soul from you as I have chakra of yours. Essentially, I would be able to pull 50 out of your 70 soul out of you, leaving you with 20% soul. Now, usually this isn't an issue, because as long as you get the torso and the head out of that person's body, they're gonna die. If we remember correctly, Orochimaru's arms were rendered useless when his arms were cut off his soul. So if the same applies to your head and your body, well, then you're just either gonna be a vegetable or you're gonna be dead. But what if we think about it the other way around? What if I have 200 chakra and you have 50? Who's to say I would have to use the entirety of my soul to pull yours into the Shinigami? Because think about it for a second, the only times we've ever seen the Death Reaper seal used were by people fighting people with more chakra than them. Hiruzen didn't have enough chakra to pull all of Orochimaru's soul out of him. He could only get the arms. And Minato was only able to pull out half of Kurama with his soul. So we technically have no points in the show where we've seen somebody with more chakra than the person they're fighting use Death Reaper seal. And this makes sense, I guess, because Death Reaper seal is a Hail Mary. You would only ever really use it against somebody you were outmatched with. But there is a lot of other situations where it could be applicable. So these Uzumakis use Death Reaper seal on these other people, which shortens their lifespan, and it lessens their life force. But the Uzumakis didn't want this, so they made the Shinigami masks. And by donning the Shinigami masks, they could bring that same Shinigami who was holding part of their soul in its stomach back to their plane of reality, cut its stomach open, and release their soul back into them. Worst case scenario, this kills them, but their soul in its entirety gets to go to the Pure Lands. Best case scenario, they're 100% themselves and they're able to heal from that wound and they get all their life force and life expectancy back. When you take all of these points into effect, it looks like the Uzumakis should be able to do this. It's really the only rational explanation for the things that we have in the show. But what's insane is that's not even the Uzumaki's strongest ability. Their strongest ability would be the one we talked about before this: adamantite chains. For those of you who don't know, adamantite is a bit like the vibranium of the Marvel universe. It's the strongest material in the Naruto universe. Now, adamantite's literal definition means unbreakable. Adamantite is kind of a general generic catch-all word for an incredibly hard material, like diamonds. And adamantite chains live up to that name. You see, adamantite chains were specific to full-blooded Uzumakis. This is why we've never seen Naruto use them, but we have seen Kushina and Karin use them. See, adamantite chains are chains that shoot out of an Uzumaki's body, usually from their torso. And these chains will wrap around and restrain opponents, sometimes tailed beasts, sometimes people. But the thing is, these chains were inspired, once again, by a little thing from Hunter x Hunter. You know Kurapika's chain jail? And how Kurapika's chain jail forces those who are in it into Zetsu. Zetsu meaning they can no longer use their nen. Well, adamantite chains work exactly the same. If you get wrapped up in adamantite chains, they nullify and even completely erase your ability to use chakra. This is so effective in combination with the fact that the chains themselves are incredibly durable that they're able to bind the Nine Tails, which, mind you, is stronger than all the other tailed beasts combined. But here's the thing, those chains technically don't even have to be wrapped around Kurama to keep him in one place. Kushina, by the way, after Kurama was pulled out of her, was able to make a barrier out of these adamantite chains that not only prevented Kurama from getting out, but also prevented Hiruzen from getting in. Mind you, Hiruzen is no slouch. That's what's truly wild, and one of the things we truly need to focus on while talking about the Uzumakis, and specifically Ashina Uzumaki. Kushina was able to hold down and keep Kurama, the strongest tailed beast in existence, under wraps after having Kurama ripped out of her. We are talking about at most 10 to 20% strength Kushina here, which means that because Ashina is almost definitely stronger than Kushina, that he is at least 5 to 10 times stronger than the Kushina we saw in the fight against Kurama. And 5 to 10 times would simply just mean he's as strong as Kushina. So now that I've set the groundwork for just what the Uzumaki clan was capable of, let's talk about Ashina Uzumaki himself. Ashina has white hair, which might seem like a minor detail to you, but is actually very important. You see, Mito Uzumaki, the person that Hashirama marries that lives until the reign of Hiruzen, yeah, when she transfers Kurama onto Kushina, she is damn near 100 years old. And after she transfers Kurama, she actually lives for 10 to 15 more years. Ashina Uzumaki is the only Uzumaki we've seen without red hair. Why is that? Well, probably just because he got old and his hair went white. But the thing is that Mito Uzumaki, when we see her talking with Kushina when she's almost 100, maybe older than 100, still has red hair, which means that she hadn't even started to gray yet, which would imply that Ashina Uzumaki is significantly older than Mito was in that moment, probably into his mid 100s. And what's wild is the only time we ever see Ashina Uzumaki, which is in episode 247 of Naruto Shippuden, Hashirama and the Senju are looking to the Uzumaki with help sealing a beast, an incredibly powerful beast that Hashirama himself couldn't deal with. Remember, Hashirama is the man who caught every single tailed beast. He beat Kurama when Madara was on his back. The fact that Hashirama and the Senju would need help with this beast kind of puts into scale how powerful this beast might be. Obviously, it wasn't a tailed beast, so Hashirama's wood release wouldn't suppress its chakra like it does with tailed beasts, but still, scale. After a short fight with the beast ensued and the beast was weakened a little bit, Ashina almost effortlessly weaved the hand sign for a Fuin jutsu and sealed it away like that. This beast, nobody else, including Hashirama, was able to seal. Ashina in his mid 100s was able to seal with little to no effort. And this makes sense because Ashina Uzumaki is actually considered Konoha's forefather of Fuin jutsu, meaning that all Konoha specific Fuin jutsu came from him. By the way, I did some math and I might be highballing on the age of the Uzumakis by like 20 to 30 years. Nobody knows exactly how old Ashina Uzumaki was, but people hypothesize that Mito Uzumaki died between 72 and like 90 years old. But once again, she had Kurama ripped out of her, which would have significantly shortened her lifespan. Regardless, they get older than average people. Get out of my face with all that math. Regardless of the age that Ashina Uzumaki was gonna stop breathing at, he was insanely powerful. He more likely than not had strength of 100 seal level chakra, an inherent ridiculous healing factor, an extended life expectancy, and was the best user of Fuin jutsu on Earth. Not only could he use adamantite chains better than Kushina, he also most likely had access to the Mind's Eye Kagura, and there's a possibility he could use a jutsu that spawns an invisible god of death behind you that once it grabs you, it paralyzes you, stops you from being able to use any jutsu, and then rips your soul out of you to fight in a god of death's stomach for eternity. And more likely than not, he wouldn't die from using it. Honestly, the best thing we can use to corroborate his power is what happened in regards to the Uzumaki clan. The Uzumaki were a relatively small clan, not so small that they couldn't form their own village, which they did, the village hidden in the whirlpools, but they were in lockstep with the Senju the entirety of the Warring States period, which is 2,000 years. And yet, after 2,000 years of fighting side by side with the Senju still wanted them gone. Listen, what I'm about to say is another theory, but it's a theory that I've made an entire video about and a theory that makes a lot of sense. You see, the Senju, and I guess maybe even the Uchiha, and maybe the entirety of Konoha, were afraid of the Uzumaki. See, the Uzumaki would be able to monopolize tailed beasts. One heavily injured Uzumaki is able to hold down the strongest tailed beast. They could just make 9 Jinchuriki in an afternoon. And this is why the 4 major ninja villages outside of Konoha wiped the Uzumakis off the map. But if Konoha, and specifically the Senjus, were allies with the Uzumakis, why didn't they help? You don't honestly think that the Uzumakis wouldn't be able to hold out long enough for either Konoha or the Senju to get there, because the village hidden in the whirlpools was on the coast of the Land of Fire. It's not far from Konoha. Remember, Kushina was able to make a barrier with adamantite chains that was able to keep both the Nine Tails in and the third Hokage out. Now you have an entire clan of people who should absolutely have that level of power. You're telling me you can't hold out until Hashirama gets here? Hashirama didn't want to get there. See, Hashirama and Konoha knew that if the Uzumaki were gone, they would have the only person left who could seal all of these tailed beasts in Hashirama, and therefore didn't go to the aid of the Uzumaki, wiping what is the only threat to the Senju and Konoha off the map permanently. And this is because Ashina was stronger than Hashirama. You see, adamantite chains work pretty similarly to wood release when we're talking about sealing things. But wood release only suppresses the chakra of tailed beasts. Adamantite chains worked on Hiruzen. Hashirama went to Ashina for help sealing a beast. Hashirama married into the Uzumakis to garner good faith. Hashirama put the whirlpool symbol on every flak jacket in Konoha to make sure the Uzumakis knew they were welcomed here. While we may not know a lot about Ashina Uzumaki's life or his powers, we can make inferences that state arguably the third strongest person in the history of Naruto knew somebody near was stronger than him. And that, unfortunately, is really all we can infer about Ashina. Beats-wise, he'd more likely than not be able to seal the Ten Tails. And that is a terrifying level of power. But what do you guys think? Is there any other characters who piqued as much interest as Ashina Uzumaki that we never got full explanations for? Tell me in the comments below. And while you're down there, please like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Give us an Edo Samurai styled prequel story to Naruto about Hashirama Madara and Ashina Uzumaki in the Warring States period, and I'll give you $1 billion, Kishimoto.